It was a regular Friday evening when I received the email from my ex-wife's attorney. I had just gotten home from work, kicked off my shoes, and was looking forward to a quiet weekend with my daughter Emma. The subject line read, "Modification of Child Support Agreement." My stomach dropped. I opened it, and there it was. A demand to triple my monthly child support payments from $1,200 to $3,600. Triple. The reasoning. So Emma could have a better life, and they would never have to worry about money. I stared at my screen, completely blindsided. Jessica and I had been divorced for 2 years, and things had been relatively cordial. I saw Emma every week, paid my support, on time, worked hard as a sales manager at a software company. But this did not make sense. What had changed? Why did they suddenly need 3 times the amount? I had no idea that answering those questions would uncover a truth that would shake everything I thought I knew about my ex-wife and the man she had moved on with. Before I dive into what happened next, I would love to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments below. And if you have ever dealt with a complicated divorce or felt like something just did not add up in your own life, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to hear more real stories like this one, because what I discovered in the next few weeks, it changed everything I thought I knew about my ex-wife and the man she had moved on with. The Sunday afternoon sun filtered through the windows of the small coffee shop downtown as I sat across from Jessica. I had texted her the day after receiving the lawyer's email asking to meet in person. I needed to understand this face-to-face, not through attorneys or cold legal documents. When she walked in, I noticed immediately how much she had changed in just a few months since I had last really looked at her. Her hair was freshly colored, this caramel shade that probably cost a fortune at one of those upscale salons. Her nails were done in this glossy gel manicure, perfectly shaped. And she was carrying a handbag I recognized from browsing online once. $800, I remembered thinking it was absurd at the time. She slid into the seat across from me with an expression that was already defensive, her jaw set tight. I kept my voice calm. "Jessica, help me understand. Why do we need to triple the child support? What has changed?" She looked away, fidgeting with her coffee cup. "Emma is growing up, Keegan. She needs more things now. The cost of living has gone up. I want her to have opportunities. Piano lessons, swimming classes, maybe a private school." I leaned forward. "But you're still working full-time, right? You're making about $60,000 a year as a dental hygienist. With what I am already paying, that should be more than enough for Emma's needs." Her eyes flashed with something I could not quite read. Irritation, guilt. "You would not understand. Things are different now." Different how I wanted to ask, but she cut me off. "I need an answer in 2 weeks. If you cannot agree, my attorney will file with the court." The ultimatum hung in the air between us like a threat. This was not the woman I had married, the one who used to believe in working things out together. Something had shifted, and I left that coffee shop with more questions than answers. 2 days later, on a Friday evening, I picked up Emma for our weekend together. She came bounding out of Jessica's house in a new dress and brand new Nike sneakers that had to cost at least $85. My little girl, 6 years old, with blonde hair and blue eyes that sparkled when she smiled, threw her arms around me. "Daddy, look at my new shoes. Brad got them for me." Brad. The name hit me like cold water. Who is Brad, sweetheart? Emma climbed into her car seat, chattering away without a care in the world. "Mommy's friend. He lives with us now. He buys me lots of stuff. Last week, he bought Mommy a really pretty ring. He is really nice, Daddy." My hands gripped the steering wheel a little tighter as I processed this information. I knew Jessica had been dating someone. We had been divorced for 2 years after all. But I had not known it was serious enough that he had moved in. And if this Brad was wealthy enough to casually buy designer shoes for Emma and jewelry for Jessica, why on earth did Jessica need more money from me? That night after Emma fell asleep in her room at my place, I could not stop thinking about it. I grabbed my laptop and searched for Brad Real Estate in our city. It did not take long. Brad Morrison popped up, a luxury real estate agent with a polished LinkedIn profile full of professional headshots and posts about high-end property sales. His Instagram was public, and I spent the next hour scrolling through it. Photos of him at expensive restaurants, weekend getaways to coastal towns, pictures of him handing Jessica flowers, though she never tagged him by name. Brad looked to be in his late 30s, tall with dark brown hair, clean-shaven, always dressed impeccably in suits or designer casual wear. His whole persona screamed success, and yet something about it felt off, too polished, too perfect, like he was trying really hard to project an image. The next morning, I called my old friend Marcus, who still lived in the same neighborhood as Jessica. Marcus, I need to ask you something. Do you know anything about this Brad guy who is living with Jessica? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Oh man, yeah. Brad Morrison, right? He moved in about 4 months ago, drives a Mercedes-Benz GLE, probably worth $65,000 or so. The whole neighborhood has noticed. He and Jessica have been renovating the house. New paint job redoing the backyard. Looks expensive. Marcus lowered his voice. Between you and me, Keegan, word around here is that Brad is pretty generous with his money. Always picking up the tab buying gifts. Some of the neighbors think he is trying to impress everyone. I thanked Marcus and hung up, my mind racing. If Brad was so flush with cash, why would Jessica need to squeeze me for more child support? None of it made sense. Unless there was something I was not seeing. I made a decision right then. I needed to dig deeper. I needed to know the truth. The following Monday, I took an extended lunch break to meet with my attorney, Sarah Hopkins. She had handled my divorce 2 years ago and had always been straightforward with me. I laid out everything. The demand for triple child support, Brad moving in with Jessica, the expensive gifts, and lifestyle Emma's innocent revelations. Sarah listened carefully, taking notes. Keegan, under the law, if Jessica is cohabitating with someone who has substantial income, that can absolutely be a factor in determining child support. But we need concrete evidence. We need to show that the additional money is not actually for Emma's benefit. She leaned back in her chair. Here is what I suggest. Send Jessica a formal request for a detailed breakdown of Emma's expenses. School costs, medical bills, extracurricular activities, everything. If she is asking for more money, she should be able to justify it. I followed Sarah's advice that same afternoon. I sent Jessica an email keeping it professional and reasonable. I explained that I was willing to discuss adjusting child support, but I needed to see a detailed accounting of Emma's actual expenses first. Her response came within an hour, and it was not what I expected. 3 text messages fired off in rapid succession. You do not trust me with our daughter. Then, I do not need to prove anything to you. And finally, either you pay up or we go to court. I stared at my phone, feeling a mixture of frustration and growing suspicion. Why was she so defensive? Why would not she just provide the information any reasonable parent would want to show that the money was going to their child's needs? Her reaction only confirmed what I was beginning to suspect. This was not about Emma at all. 2 weeks passed, and I found myself picking Emma up for another weekend visit. Jessica had let Emma borrow her tablet to watch movies during the car ride to my place. We were about 15 minutes from my house when Emma accidentally dropped the tablet on the floor of the back seat. Oops. Sorry, Daddy. I pulled over at a gas station to pick it up for her, and when I lifted the tablet, the screen lit up. A text message notification was displayed right there, unlocked. I was not trying to snoop. It was literally in front of my face. The message was from Brad to Jessica. Did you ask him about the extra money yet? And Jessica's response below it. Yeah, he is being difficult. But once we get it, We can finally book that Turks and Caicos trip. Brad's reply, and finish the kitchen remodel. This is perfect timing, babe. My blood went cold. I felt my heart pounding in my chest, that sick feeling of betrayal washing over me. They did not need the money for Emma. They wanted it for a luxury vacation to Turks and Caicos. They wanted it to finish renovating their kitchen. They were using our daughter as an excuse to fund their lifestyle. I quickly pulled out my phone and took a photo of the screen, my hands shaking slightly. Then I handed the tablet back to Emma, forcing myself to smile like nothing was wrong. Here you go, sweetheart. But inside I was reeling. How could Jessica do this? How could she use Emma like this? Not because she had moved on with someone new. I was long past caring about that. But because she was willing to lie, to manipulate, to exploit our child for money that had nothing to do with Emma's well-being. That night after Emma was asleep, I could not rest. I paced my apartment. The image of those text messages burned into my mind. I thought about Emma, about how she deserved to have her child support actually used for her benefit. Her education, her health, her real needs. Not for her mother's boyfriend's fantasy lifestyle. I made another decision. I was going to find out exactly what was going on, and I was going to stop this. The next morning, I did something I never thought I would do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Tom Nguyen, came highly recommended from a colleague who had used him during a business dispute. I paid him $1,500 up front and gave him one job: follow Jessica and Brad for 10 days. Document their spending, their activities, everything. I needed proof. 10 days later, Tom sent me a detailed report with photos and receipts, and what I read made my stomach turn. Jessica and Brad had eaten at a fine dining restaurant twice in that period. Bills over $300 each time. Brad had purchased a Tiffany & Company bracelet for Jessica, approximately $1,200, based on the style Tom had photographed. They had booked a spa weekend getaway for $800. Jessica had gone shopping at Nordstrom, spending $650 on clothes for herself. A contractor had come to their house, and Tom had managed to get a copy of the estimate, $18,000 for a full kitchen renovation. But here was the kicker. There was almost nothing for Emma. No piano lesson receipts, no swimming class registrations. Emma was still attending the same public elementary school she had always gone to, not any private school. The only purchases for Emma were a few small toys from Target, totaling maybe $50. I sat there reading the report, over and over, feeling rage build inside me. They were lying. The entire story about Emma needing more opportunities was a complete fabrication. But Tom had found something else, something that explained a lot. Brad was not as successful as he appeared to be. The real estate market had taken a downturn, and his sales had dropped significantly over the past year. Tom had accessed public records and found that Brad had accumulated about $35,000 in credit card debt. The luxury lifestyle was a facade. Brad was drowning financially, and he was using Jessica and, by extension, my child support payments to maintain his fake image of success. Either Jessica was being manipulated by this man, or she was complicit in the scheme. Either way, I was done being taken advantage of. It was time to fight back. I called Sarah Hopkins the day after receiving Tom's report and laid everything out on her desk. The screenshot of the text messages, the private investigator's findings, the spending receipts the contractor estimate the evidence of Brad's debt. Sarah reviewed it all methodically, her expression growing more serious with each page. When she finally looked up at me, she nodded. This is solid, Keegan. We can fight this. In fact, we can do more than just refuse the increase. We might be able to restructure the current arrangement entirely. She outlined a strategy. First, I would formally refuse to increase the child support. Second, if Jessica tried to take me to court, we would present all of this evidence to show that the money was not being used for Emma's benefit. Third, we could request that the court investigate how the current $1,200 per month was being spent. And fourth, This was the part that really appealed to me. We could ask the court to set up a trust fund or educational account for Emma that Jessica could not touch, ensuring the money actually went to our daughter's future. I felt a surge of determination. Let us do it. But before involving the courts, I wanted to confront Jessica directly. I wanted to look her in the eye and let her know that I knew what she was doing. I picked up my phone and called her number. She answered on the third ring. Keegan. What is it? My voice was calm but firm. We need to meet. Now, I have something to discuss with you, and it cannot wait. There was hesitation on her end. I am busy right now. Jessica. I interrupted. This is not a request. Coffee shop downtown 1 hour. Be there. I hung up before she could argue. An hour later, I walked into that same coffee shop where we had met weeks before. Jessica was already there, sitting at a corner table with her arms crossed defensively. I sat down across from her and placed a manila folder on the table between us. What is this? She asked, eyeing it suspiciously. Open it. She did, and I watched her face go pale as she flipped through the pages. Printouts of the text message screenshots, photos from the private investigator showing her and Brad at expensive restaurants, the Tiffany store, the spa resort, a copy of the kitchen renovation estimate, documentation of Brad's credit card debt, a spreadsheet showing that virtually none of the current child support was going to Emma's stated needs. I am not tripling the child support, I said quietly. I am not giving you another penny. Jessica looked up at me, her face a mixture of shock and fear. You cannot just. Emma does not need the money. I continued, my voice steady. You and Brad do. For your trip to Turks and Caicos, for your kitchen remodel, for maintaining Brad's fake lifestyle while he is drowning in debt. I leaned forward. Did you really think I would not find out? Did you think you could use our daughter as an excuse to bankroll your boyfriend's financial problems? She tried to defend herself, stammering, Brad is just going through a temporary rough patch, but he loves me and Emma. I cut her off. Brad is using you, Jessica, and you are letting him use Emma. Our daughter deserves better than this. Her eyes filled with tears, but I was not done. Here is what is going to happen. You are going to withdraw your request for increased child support right now, today. She started to protest, but I held up my hand. If you do not, I will file a motion with the court. I will present all of this evidence. I will request a reduction in support, or better yet, a court-supervised trust fund that you cannot access, and I will ask the court to investigate how you have been spending the $1,200 per month I already give you. If they find you have been misusing it, you could be ordered to pay it back. You might even lose custody. Jessica sat there trembling, staring at the papers in front of her. The reality of the situation was crashing down on her. She had been caught. Brad had manipulated her into this scheme, and now it was all falling apart. She whispered, her voice barely audible. I will withdraw it. I stood up, gathering the folder. Good. And Jessica. From now on, things are going to change. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling a strange mixture of emotions. Relief that I had stood up for Emma. Sadness that it had come to this. But mostly, I felt a sense of clarity and purpose. I was protecting my daughter, and that was all that mattered. The next week, I met with a financial advisor and set up an education trust fund for Emma, a 529 plan that would grow over time and be available for her college expenses. I started contributing $200 per month to it, money that Jessica could never touch. Then I worked with Sarah to formally modify our child support arrangement. Instead of paying $1,200 in cash directly to Jessica, I restructured it: $800 in cash, $200 to the trust fund, and $200 that I would pay directly for Emma's activities. If Emma wanted piano lessons or swimming classes, I would pay the school or instructor directly. Jessica had no choice but to agree. She knew that if she fought it, I would take her to court with all my evidence, and she would lose far more than just the extra money she had been hoping for. I also requested increased custody time, from 2 days per week to 3 days per week. I explained to Jessica that I wanted to spend more time with Emma to be more involved in her day-to-day life, to make sure she was being properly cared for. Again, Jessica agreed. She had lost all her bargaining power. When I explained the changes to Emma in age-appropriate terms, her face lit up. "Daddy, does this mean I can really take piano lessons? You said maybe before, but now for real." I knelt down and hugged her. "Yes, sweetheart. For real. And I am going to make sure you have money saved up for when you go to college someday, too." She threw her arms around my neck. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, Emma, more than anything." Within 2 weeks, Jessica formally withdrew her request for increased child support. Her attorney sent a brief letter confirming the withdrawal, and just like that, the crisis was over. My relationship with Jessica became purely transactional after that. Polite but distant exchanges during pickups and drop-offs, brief text messages about Emma's schedule. The warmth that had existed even after our divorce was gone, replaced by a cold formality. But I was okay with that. I had protected Emma, and that was what mattered. I heard through Marcus that Jessica and Brad were having problems. Apparently, they argued frequently now, probably because the gravy train Brad had been counting on never materialized. The kitchen renovation was put on hold indefinitely. The Turks and Caicos trip never happened. And me, I felt lighter than I had in months. 3 months after the confrontation, I found myself sitting on my apartment balcony early one Saturday morning, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise. Emma was still asleep in her room. She had stayed with me the night before, and we had plans to go hiking later that day. I reflected on everything that had happened, and I realized something important. Those first few weeks after the confrontation had been exhausting, not because I missed Jessica. Those romantic feelings had died long before the divorce was finalized, but because of the betrayal. The woman I had once trusted enough to marry to have a child with had been willing to exploit that child for money. It had hurt in a way I had not expected, but gradually I had healed. I threw myself into my work, and it paid off. My performance numbers at the company improved so much that I was promoted to senior sales manager with a significant raise. I started spending more time with Emma, and our bond grew stronger. We cooked dinner together on the nights she stayed with me. We read books before bed. We went on weekend adventures, hiking trails, visits to the science museum, afternoons at the park. I began running every morning 5 miles before work, and it became my meditation time. The physical exertion cleared my head and helped me process everything. I reconnected with old friends I had lost touch with during the marriage and divorce. I built a life that was full and meaningful, not defined by what Jessica had done, but by what I was choosing to do. Emma was thriving too. She started piano lessons at a local music school, and I paid the tuition directly each month. Her teacher said she had natural talent. The trust fund I had set up now had $600 in it, 3 months of contributions at $200 per month. It was not much yet, but over the years, it would grow into something substantial that would help Emma with college. Our relationship had never been closer. She told me things she did not tell her mother. She laughed more when she was with me, and I made sure she knew every single day that she was loved and valued for who she was, not for what she could provide to anyone else. As for Jessica and Brad, I heard through the grapevine that they were still together, but barely. The real estate market had not recovered, and Brad's financial situation had apparently gotten worse. There were rumors that they might have to sell the house. I felt no satisfaction in that. I had moved past anger and into a place of genuine indifference. What they did with their lives was no longer my concern. I had learned to forgive, not for Jessica's sake, but for my own. Holding on to resentment would only poison my own happiness. I acknowledged that people change sometimes for the worse, and that was not my fault. My only responsibility was to be the best father I could be to Emma and to live my life with integrity. I had learned 3 crucial lessons through this whole ordeal. First, trust is important, but so is verification. When something feels wrong, especially when it involves your child, you have every right to ask questions and demand transparency. Do not let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting your child's interests. Second, standing up for what is right is not always easy, but it is always worth it. Confronting Jessica had been one of the hardest conversations of my life, but it was necessary. Being a parent means fighting for your child even when it is uncomfortable or scary. And third, letting go of anger is essential for your own peace. I could have stayed bitter about what Jessica tried to do. I could have let it consume me, but I chose to release it to focus on what I could control. Being present for Emma, building a good life, moving forward with grace. Looking back now, I realize that whole situation was a blessing in disguise. It taught me to be more vigilant, more protective of Emma's future. It showed me who I could trust and who I could not. Some people will always put their own desires above what is right, but you do not have to let them walk all over you. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we fight for the people we love. And when you win those battles, the peace that follows is worth every single moment of pain. What would you have done in my situation? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to stand up to an ex-partner over money or your kids? How did you handle it? Drop your story down there. This community is built on sharing and supporting each other through tough times. And if this story resonated with you, do me a favor, hit that like button so more people can find it. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, because I share real stories like this one every week. Share this video with someone who might be going through something similar. Sometimes knowing you are not alone makes all the difference. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. I hope it reminded you that you have more power than you think, especially when you are fighting for someone you love. Take care of yourselves out there, protect what matters most, and never be afraid to stand up for the truth. Until next time.